And tonight on Coast to Coast AM, we talk Confronting Collapse. Michael Rupert back after 6 years. I'll be chatting with him when we come right back on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie. Michael Rupert, of course, is an author, former Los Angeles Police Department officer, investigative journalist, peak oil advocate as well. He has published and edited The Wilderness, a newsletter and website that covered a range of topics, including politics, the CIA, civil liberties, economics, corruption, conspiracy theories as well. And welcome back, Michael. How have you been?
I've been. It's been a crazy life since the last time I was with you.
You know what? You're absolutely right. I lost touch with you after we talked in 2006. Did you leave the country for a while?
Oh, yeah. That was, I think the show actually might have been in 2005. I'm not sure. But
I've got January 12th, 2006, they tell me.
Okay. It was early in 6. What had happened was it was just a few months after that I was contacted by Mary Tillman, the mother of Pat Tillman, the pro football player.
Okay, right.
The Ranger was killed by friendly fire in Afghanistan. And she came to me trying to reach my military affairs editor, Stan Goff, who was a retired master sergeant from U.S. Army Special Forces Delta, who had taught at West Point. And Stan was a brilliant writer, and I went down to the Tillman home in Northern California and copied 2,000 pages of records through the course of one night, returned all the documents, went back to Ashland, Oregon, where my offices were, flew Stan out, and we decoded those documents. And From the Wilderness was the name of the new newsletter, FTW as we call it. Mm-hmm. And we did a 7-part series on how the U.S. Army and the U.S. Government Defense Department had staged a massive cover-up and awarded a false Silver Star. We brought down six senior officers, 3 general officers, and we forced Donald Rumsfeld to resign. Our series was used by Congressman Waxman, Henry Waxman from L.A.,
Well, when you dig into a story, you don't let go.
No. As a matter of fact, Stan, who is just a wonderful human being and a great writer, he calls me the Terrier, and apparently that name has stuck with quite a few of my green beanie friends.
So you're the Terrier. I call Alex Jones, whom you know, the Bulldog. And, Michael, over the 6 years, so when you left the country, what happened there?
Well, as we were running part 5 of the series, and that's when we really placed a number of felony charges right at Rumsfeld's door. Actually, it went higher than that. It went to Cheney. But all of my computers were smashed. I had 7 computers in the offices. The offices were burglarized.
Oh boy!
And a whole series of things befell me. Newspaper stories were planted, and my life was in danger. The only thing that could have stopped the series from being published at the time would have been my death. So I fled to Venezuela and spent 4 months there. I was poisoned there in Venezuela. But I returned to the U.S. about a week after Donald Rumsfeld resigned.
Huh. Well, I'm glad you're back safe and sound, no doubt, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Do you miss being a police officer?
Not so much anymore, but it is still so much a part of my life. I'm 61 now, so I can't see putting on the blue suit and going out in South Central again.
No.
But there's a part of me that still very much is a cop, in the sense that I've been chasing the bad guys all this time.
I remember once, it must have been 15, 16 years ago, you confronted the head of the Central Intelligence Agency in L.A. Because you were doing some investigating and you came across evidence that the CIA was involved in drug dealing.
Well, it wasn't really investigating. There's an old saying that in a ham and eggs breakfast, the chicken's involved, but the pig is committed. I was being recruited by CIA while I was a cop. I come from a CIA family.
Okay.
Very, very high clearances in my family. I hope we get to that because that's part of the new evolution that I'm into. I can talk about the stuff my dad knew about UFOs a little bit now.
Okay.
But I had very high clearances, and the CIA wanted me to protect drug shipments coming into the country. That's the bottom line. There are ways that narcs clear search warrants to make sure that they aren't serving a search warrant on a house where the FBI has somebody undercover, and the CIA guy sits at the desk and he doesn't let any search warrants get served on the places that are being protected, and that's the way it's done. Gary Webb, my dear friend, who broke the Dark Alliance stories, encountered the same thing with Ricky Ross.
And what do they do with the money? Black Ops money, or what do they do with it?
Oh, no. My book, Crossing the Rubicon, which came out in 2004, The Decline of the American Empire at the End of the Age of Oil, it's in the Harvard Biz Library, 600 pages with 1,000 footnotes.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
And the reason why it's in the Harvard Business Library is because I showed that this wasn't just to run covert ops. This was to support an absolutely corrupt economic paradigm. In other words, you have companies, and I documented this thoroughly, like General Motors, General Electric, Philip Morris, all going down to South America, accepting boatloads of drug cash because a drug lord says, here, I've got $5 million. Sell me 50 Blazers. I want to open a dealership. And major corporations launder drug money hand over fist. And the reason why that it's so powerful is because if they have a price to earnings ratio of 30-1, they sneak this money onto the bottom line net profits. Stock analysts look at it. So if you launder $1 million of drug cash onto your books, you've just created $30 million in stock value.
It's huge.
We are living in the results of that now. In Crossing the Rubicon, I predicted everything that was happening, and that has been happening ever since. We live in the world I described.
And they take the cash, of course, and dump it into these banks that don't say anything about it.
No. But that's even what's more insidious about this is that it is an infinite growth Ponzi scheme. And it requires expansion unto infinity, or it collapses. But the problem is that we live on a finite planet. And there is more money out there than Mother Earth has the ability to repay in the form of debt. The planet's already been plundered, and she's in full revolt right now.
No, you're right about that. I'm looking forward to getting into all of this with you, Michael. Since you brought up your family and your clearance there, what did they know?
Well, I have to give you the background on both my parents.
Okay.
My mother was a genius. She grew up in West Virginia. She graduated college at like 18, and like December 10th, 41, she was in Washington, D.C. applying for a job, like everybody else. And they had her do a New York Times crossword puzzle, which she finished in like record time. She wound up becoming a senior cryptanalyst at the Army Security Agency. Her work product went directly to Secretary Stinson and Hull and to FDR. She was a code breaker, and she was really good at it. My dad was a Air Force veteran from World War II B-17s, and he became an officer for the Korean War and was a radar intercept officer. This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Radar intercept officer in F-89s and F-90s stationed in Presque Isle, Maine, flying over the North Pole during the Korean War, waiting for Russian bombers. Now, that's the hot seat of doom for UFOs.
It sure is.
Okay. Dad had cosmic clearance above. He was liaison between Martin Marietta Corporation, which built the Titan 3C, which put up all the keyhole spy satellites. He was on the design concept team for that. He was on Project Vanguard before that. But he was liaison between Martin, CIA, and the U.S. Air Force for the keyhole spy satellites. So that's about as high as it gets. I have photographs that I scanned recently and sent to Robert Hastings, who's done some great work.
Yeah, he's been on the show. He's
a neighbor of mine. We'll get to that. This is all coincidence.
There are no coincidences, Michael. You know that.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I love this story. But so anyway, I have photos of my dad with two separate photos with four-star generals. One was the commander of Logistics Command out of Wright-Patterson, and we know what Wright-Patterson is, right?
That's right, we sure do.
And the other was Systems Command at Vandenberg, and my dad was always at Vandenberg, China Lake, Groom Lake. So that's what I grew up in. And I did not know that I had a clearance until I was interning for Chief Ed Davis at LAPD. I filled out I was going to be a cop.
Well, how'd you get it? Did he get you one? Your father?
No, because I lived in this. This is customary practice. Because I'm a child living with them, in case Dad leaves the briefcase open, everybody in the family gets a clearance.
Ah, okay.
So I'm working for LAPD, and they put me into the chief's office, and they said, "You got a Q clearance. Who are you?" And I go, "What are you talking about?" And I went home and I asked my dad, and that's when Dad and I had this face to face, and this was pure respect. We didn't have long conversations. He didn't spill his guts to me, but UFOs came up, and I said, "Dad, does this have anything? I have this clearance. Does this have anything to do with UFOs?" And he said, "We can't touch them." And I said, "Does that mean you can't catch them, shoot them down, acquire them, like a pilot, or does that mean you can't talk about them?" And he said, "Both." And that was the only time it ever came up.
At that point, the minute he said that, how did you feel? Dad would not lie to you.
No, Dad was a man of honor, as are all the Air Force officers, like the one Robert Hastings
That's right.
had there, man. That's what I come from. And it's funny, when you get to people like David Wilcock, and Graham Hancock, and Greg Braden, those are three of my heroes right now. But Wilcock's book, Source Field Investigation, I'm seeing checklists of people that I met as a child growing up, or circumstances that I was in, or things that I heard about and learned about growing up. It's uncanny.
They were watching you then.
Well, I think it's spiritually even more than that. I think that we are definitely at the end of human industrial civilization. It is done. It is time. I'm very deeply now into indigenous spirituality, but it's time for the Red Kachina, because the world is absolutely out of control. And there was a major point that we passed this spring that set loose for me just this major evolution, where a great many things are now clear, and I'm free to talk about all of them now.
Good, because you were holding back for a while.
Well, yeah. There was. I want to say this and make this clear, because when I first started getting hot from the wilderness, we were doing some big exposés. We really kicked the government in the cojones many times, and people would come up to me and ask me about this guy David Icke, and they'd hand me some of the spiritual stuff that he said.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sober. I was sober in AA then. I spent 21 years in AA. That's another significant part of this story. And, God, he was perfect. I totally agree with him. It's beautiful. I love it. And then they say, well, he talks about lizard people. And what I knew instantly, and this was as if I had this mission, if you will, since I was born, was that I had to fight in their arena inside the state religion. And I couldn't, the moment I would have said anything about extraterrestrial activity, UFOs,
reptilians, anything like that,
I would never have been able to land a blow. And I have counted coup on a sitting CIA director, John Deutsch, in 1996, South Central Los Angeles, because I got, they were trying to kill me because I was blowing the whistle on CIA dealing drugs then. And so I counted coup on John Deutsch, and I also counted coup on Donald Rumsfeld. Maybe that's why I've been fortunate to meet so many cool warriors like Tracker Tom Brown, who's a friend, and Dick Marcinko of SEAL 6, who gave me a K-bar knife that he autographed.
You've written Confronting Collapse. Mm-hmm. Tell me what that's all about.
Well, what it's about now, George, is it's too late.
Oh, great.
I mean, I had a great 25-point plan if they would have implemented it in 2008 when I finished writing the book. But what is in that book for those who are trapped in a total 3D, show-me-the-numbers consciousness? I show with basic arithmetic that human industrial civilization is absolutely screwed.
And there's nothing they can do to pull out?
No, I mean, we are living in an infinite growth paradigm. Growth is over. I hope people are starting to notice that now. But there is no more growth because growth requires resources, and above all, it requires cheap energy. And we have long since passed peak oil. That was 2006, confirmed.
Yeah, that's one area you and I don't agree with. I'm an abiotic oil believer. But you know what? It's always good to get other views on this program, and I never muffle that, ever.
We've got, that there's real hard data, and if there's all that abiotic oil out there, I sure wish it would show up because global production figures just don't bear it out.
It's like De Beers. They're hiding the diamonds.
I wish. That may be the sickness which kills this species, is the failure to accept the fact that there are limits.
Well, as you got into this, it sounds like, Michael, over the years, you've gone through an incredible metamorphosis yourself, haven't you?
Yeah. It's been an incredible journey. Now, there are people who sort of followed me who are now talking about this sudden spiritual conversion that I've had. It's not true. I have lived a deeply committed spiritual life since I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous in January of 1983. I left AA in 2004 while I was writing Crossing the Rubicon, and that's a very special story. Maybe we can do that in a second, but
yeah.
Let me just go on with that. So I've been very aware, and the beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous is that it's predicated on a condition for which there are no human solutions.
Right.
Boom.
Right.
There it is. No science, no Cartesian, no psychiatry, nothing. You are beyond human aid. Well, that's exactly where the human race is right now. But if you look at what Alcoholics Anonymous does, it takes people that were universally recognized by medicine, psychiatry, everything, as being hopeless, and AA showed that all these people could come back by living by spiritual means. And to me, that's the perfect description of where the human race is right now on planet Earth in the last quarter of 2012, the end of the fourth Mayan sun.
Michael, once you finally tackled the alcoholism, I mean, how many years had gone by?
Well, I had left LAPD in 1979. I'd never been arrested or in trouble or anything, but it was really taking its toll. So I did 21 years, 1 month, and 13 days with absolute devotion in Alcoholics Anonymous to the 12 Steps, the Big Book. And I'm not in the program anymore, so I'm not breaking anonymity. And quite frankly, this is, I think, too important because probably every sober alcoholic out there right now listening can take a look at the world and say, yeah, this is a bottom.
How do you know you had a problem?
Oh, well,
because a lot of people don't know that.
Well, you lose control. I mean, I was, at the time, I was drinking until I passed out at night, and I would get sober, go to work. I had a perfect work record. But the moment I got out of work, I would, start drinking until I passed out.
Oh, jeez.
And I couldn't stop. That, of course, that condition no longer exists for me. And after 21 years, I was writing Crossing the Rubicon. And I had just, I was about two-thirds of the way through. I had just acquired all of the evidence, including on-the-record statements from Air Force officers that I printed in the book. But I had it assembled on the table in front of me that Richard Cheney had absolutely masterminded the attacks of September the 11th, and he was running 5 separate war game exercises. He had transferred two-thirds, three-quarters of the fighters out of the Northeast Air Defense Sector, sent them to Iceland, Greenland, and Canada on bogus missions.
Hold on right there, Michael. I want to get right back with all of this. Michael Rupert, our special guest tonight, as we talk about confronting collapse on Coast to Coast AM. Well, a few more weeks, it'll be Ghost to Ghost time on Halloween. We'd like to hear your riveting ghost stories. Send them to this email address, if you would, with some information on how to get back to you with a phone number, ghoststories@coasttocoastam.com. That's ghoststories@coasttocoastam.com. Who knows? You might be part of Ghost to Ghost. We're back with Michael Rupert. Michael, I suspect, regardless of one's views on 9/11, that we have only seen the tip of the iceberg here. What do you think?
No, that's absolutely true. And that was kind of the moment where we left off right before the break, because I had assembled absolute proof that Dick Cheney was running these exercises and had inserted 22 false radar blips onto the radar screens at the same time that there were 4 hijackings. And I had the proof. I had it in writing. And I didn't know if I had the courage to write it, to put it in the book.
Mm-hmm.
That was a very alone moment for me. And I hadn't been getting support in AA really for it, because people didn't want to hear about Beco. They didn't want to hear about the government or anything else.
Right.
So I asked myself the question. It was an honest spiritual question. I said, "Do you mean to tell me that after 21 years, 1 month, and 13 days of and living this program, of working doing everything, knowing it, that if I pick up a glass of wine, the whole world's going to fall to shit, and then you want me to write this book? I need to have more faith than that." And so I had a glass of wine, and I finished writing the book.
But one did not lead to 2 to 3.
No. I mean, since that time, I finished writing Crossing the Rubicon. I have done the documentary Collapse, which turned out pretty well. I've written Confronting Collapse. I started another company, Collapse Network, Collapse Net, which I just gave to the employees this spring. So you can't say I haven't been productive.
No, not at all. When in Rubicon put you on the map.
Yeah.
At that time, and explain that when you left the country because you were concerned about your safety and everything else, mm-hmm. You've come back. How come? What happened?
Well, it is, and this is a part of my spiritual growth and evolution. I have died and reincarnated. That was a major spiritual incarnation for me. One of the beautiful things that happened to me in 2001, I made a video at Portland State with 1,000 people called "Truth and Lies of 9/11," recorded like a month after the attacks. It sold 25,000 copies. But I'm getting ready to give that lecture that night. The video had not been made, and I'm again scared out of my mind. And there's a knock on my door, and there's a short Indian, 5'4". He's just standing there. He's got this big native hat on. He's carrying a tripod and a camera. He says, "Hi, my name is Skip Mayhawk. I'm your second cameraman tonight." And I go, "What?" And I didn't ask for it. So, well, I'm here. He says, "Can I come in?" And, of course, he had this presence. And Skip was an elder of the Dakota people from Oregon, part of the Dakota people.
Right. And you know how to read people.
Well, yeah. And he came into the room, and he told me his story. He had served with 101st Airborne in the Oshawa Valley in 1968 in Vietnam. If you know anything about that war, that's one of the worst battles, legendary battle, awful battle. And he walked out of the Oshawa. He was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, and he refused it because he was fighting in an unjust war. He fought beside Russell Means at Wounded Knee.
A man with honor. And
he showed up to be my second cameraman. And that was 2001. And in 2003, the last time I saw Skip, he walks up out of the fog and hands me this dream catcher, and he says, "Here, I made this for you. You're going to need it." And he started laughing. And then he walked away. And he's Tunkashila now. He's grandfather. And but that dream catcher went with me to Venezuela, and it was torn when I was down there. When I got poisoned, I was near death. I was also suicidal.
Now, when we say you got poisoned, what happened?
Well, we don't know, other than the fact that my glandular systems were starting to shut down sequentially. The adrenals were going, the lymphs were going, and they have free health care down there. The Cuban doctors did everything they could for free. That was really cool. But I was fading fast. I lost like 20 pounds, and since I've been back, one CIA source has said it was a weaponized form of mercury, but I have no way of confirming what it was. All I know is I was sick.
And you're better now?
Oh yeah, great. I'm very healthy now.
Good. But here you are. You're back in the States. I assume you are.
Yeah. Well, right now I'm in the San Luis Valley in southern Colorado at 8,100 feet, within view of about 6 peaks that are over 14,000 feet.
Now, you have, because this is part of the story here with you, Michael, you have downsized your career dramatically over the last year or so. Mm. How come? You're slowing down? What's going on?
No. This is all part of a major spiritual evolution, and my deep awareness and conviction of the fact that a major epical event in world history is underway. It is a changing of the age. It is the collapse of human industrial civilization, and hopefully, I think it will certainly be for some a liberation of Mother Earth and everything, and that includes all of us, because I'm firmly convinced that human beings have been farmed and raised like cattle for the last 5,000 years.
Probably, yep, probably. So you've downsized.
Well, it's not as if I did this voluntarily. I was in Sebastopol in Northern California. I had been there for about a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer. Moved up there after the movie Collapse was done, and I cleaned up my business in L.A., and I was renting 2.5 acres. I was into permaculture farming. I had 1,600 square feet of beds. I had 10 fruit trees. My corn was 10 feet tall.
And it wasn't GMO, was it?
No, it was all organic. What a beautiful place it is up there in West Sonoma County, and I had amazing friends. But there were issues with the economy and CollapseNet. That was my company at the time. And we had a lot of hacking, very severe cyber attacks. And with the economy slowing down, we were trying to, feed people and everything else. We came to a major crossroads, and the bottom line is I stepped back from the whole situation. And this is about 2 weeks or so after I had received a medicine bundle from my shaman with David Wilcock's book in it, The Sourcefield Investigation. And I had reached a point in the spring of this year. I and many people who have been talking about peak oil collapse for a long time. I had climate scientists on, like Guy McPherson, who was a professor emeritus from the University of Arizona. This spring, all kinds of red lines were crossed. In other words, problems had gotten so bad that they could not be solved by human beings. Climate collapse is one. Methane release from the Arctic tundra, columns that are kilometers wide, 10, 15, 20 columns, just venting methane straight up. Other Fukushima, totally out of control. Still, reactor 2 so hot they can't even get a machine near it, and they don't know how to design a machine to get near it.
And I wonder what happened to some of those workers who got close to it. I wonder if they're even alive.
Well, we live in a world, George, that's just sick. It's destroying itself. You look around everywhere, and there is nothing working now. Nothing is working anymore.
Worldwide.
Exactly. And this is the collapse of human industrial civilization. It is well underway. So anyway, this spring, let's take. I accept right now as an axiom that there are extraterrestrials who will not allow planet Earth to be destroyed in a nuclear holocaust.
All right. So you think they'll step in as Hastings has said they have?
Yes.
Okay.
And I also believe that on a number of other levels, Mother Earth is a sentient being. I am a Gaian.
I agree with that.
I am Gaian, and so what opened up for me? I was liberated. I was freed from a post where I was reporting at CollapseNet on how bad things were, and it was killing me reading all the bad news every day. But I was relieved because the lines have been crossed across the board, and people like myself, Dmitry Orlov, many others who were in the field who were well known, we all kind of reached this point at the same time this spring. That's it.
That's unusual, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when the situation with CollapseNet came up, and there was some dissension because the people in CollapseNet didn't want me to talk about anything UFO or spiritual, and that was suffocating to me. So I fired myself. And 12 people kept the company, and they've still got jobs, and they're still getting paid. So I did the right thing there. But I was left with these crops, and it's a long story, but I was left alone to tend for all these crops, and I couldn't leave the plants, and I did. So I wound up losing the place, and I moved here to the San Luis Valley August 16th and landed with my dear friend Doug Lewis, who was a bandmate. We have a band. They had a band called New White Trash. And he had moved,
nice name.
And he had moved out here 16 months ago. And there was a bed and a place. So everything that I owned came here with me in my RAV4, including my dog, Rags.
What kind of dog do you have?
He's a rescue. I had
Good for you.
I had to get DNA done on him to find out what he was. Funny thing is, I tried saliva the first time. You know, those cheap ones.
Yeah.
And it came back and it said he was an English bulldog. No, he's
what's he look like?
He's all over my Facebook page. Floppy-eared hound, and he is not an English bulldog. And so I had blood DNA done. Well, first I sent in my saliva to see what and they said I was a dachshund. So I had the blood.
Oh,
DNA
I would have said you were a pit bull, but not a Dachshund.
So I had the blood DNA done on him. He's a German short-haired pointer, Greater Swiss Mountain Dog, Bloodhound, Staffordshire Terrier, and Boxer.
So he's with you.
Yes.
Your possessions, whatever you had.
Yes.
And you're just. I don't want to say you're starting over, but you're waiting for something, aren't you?
I'm free. Michael C. Rupert died when he moved out of Sebastopol. I burned 350 pounds of records from all the investigations I conducted in my life, including the stuff.
Why'd you get rid of them all?
I burned them because that world is over. It's done. There's nothing to do with it anymore. There's not going to be any courts, and I carried those records to honor the many men who were murdered. I mean, 5 special forces. I got into some really heavy stuff, spooky stuff. And I had some, and I burned it. It's gone. I'm free.
Are you positive about the future? And we're going to get to that next hour. But, I mean, do you see some hope here?
I do see hope for those who have the heart and the consciousness to become coherent with a new frequency that is going to be taking this planet over, and the frequency is one of love. We can no longer afford to live in a world that's ruled by fear.
You said something very interesting, that the ETs would not allow this planet to collapse.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do they come to save us? Because it's getting pretty late.
What? You noticed, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. And I have a strong sense that great things are underway even as we speak right now. I have a very deep sense of that, especially because of the way I've been led. Now, here I find myself in the San Luis Valley, which is a very sacred valley in all of North America for all indigenous peoples. No war has ever been fought in this valley. And the Hopi believe that they were born from a cave in Mount Blanca, which I can see outside my bedroom window right now.
Okay.
I'm
actually talking about the Hopis tomorrow. So,
and I'm near a town called Crestone, at which there are like 11 major spiritual retreats. I mean, the Dalai Lama had a retreat here. There's Zen Buddhists. There's 3 or 4 Buddhist sects. There's Hindu. The Carmelites are here. This is the Tibet of North America here. And I didn't even know this place existed 6 months ago.
Do you love it?
It's different.
It's not L.A.
Oh, it's Sebastopol and Sonoma County that I miss. That was paradise.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable.
Yeah,
that was
gorgeous.
Mother Earth at her lushest, most giving, generous. You can't do anything wrong if you're growing stuff there. I mean, Luther Burbank's farm was like 3 miles from where I lived. And it was such a... This now, where I am, is like Mother Earth's private quarters. She doesn't invite a lot of people here.
What did you learn over the years now, Michael? All this knowledge that you had, what have you learned?
What I've learned was that I firmly believe that I have walked a path that was laid out for me even before I was born. If you want to talk in terms of Dolores Cannon, I'm first wave. I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was born 2 months premature, and I was pronounced dead. And I cried on the way to the morgue. They had my face covered. A nurse was carrying me out of the OR.
A little 7-month-old baby. Off you go. Yeah.
And I cried. And there's been such a litany of things that have happened in my life that I find myself having been steered and put in places and seen things to do things. And what I thought was just amazing today, I saw this today. I also had some major spiritual healings in Sebastopol right before I came here, and I was also given my spirit name, which is Tracker of Truth. I really wanted that. I just wanted to know who I was, and I couldn't refuse the name when I got it. So that's my spirit name. I go by Track now. Anyway, I just noticed today that David Wilcox suddenly has been drawn high into the Rockies up in Banff, Canada, and he's gone through the same kinds of experiences.
Yeah, he's doing the same thing you have.
And now, there's a connection to this. There's something, people are being moved around, and I've been seeing it. And I've been in the catbird seat to see that because I've been at CollapseNet and so plugged into Gaian spirituality and all of the awakenings that are coming around the sentience of Mother Earth and our relationship to her. And so, man, as the natives would say, the great mystery is very busy right now.
I mean, you seem like a different person from 6 years ago.
I am.
Dramatically different.
I'm free now.
You seem calm.
Yes. Yeah.
You're not looking over your shoulder anymore, are you?
Well, see, that was a very hard life to have the spiritual consciousness that I have lived with for all these years, and people who followed me closely know very well. And when you see, and I was pretty out with it in the documentary Collapse too. You know that what we need is a change of consciousness. That's the only thing that's going to happen. But I had to have that spiritual consciousness. But my mission was to fight the powers that be in their own inquisitorial courts and beat them there. That was the mission. Because I reached people that couldn't have been reached any other way. Those were the ones who have been thoroughly hypnotized. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. I was able to stir them and bring them out. But I also stood right in the devil's own chamber, and I took the blows for it many, many times.
What would you say, Michael, right now would be our most pressing issue, our most severe issue?
The only thing that's going to make a difference for this is, and here I pay great tribute to Greg Braden. He's just amazing.
Oh, he's a genius.
And he says it so. And isn't it funny that he worked for Martin Marietta? That's the same. That's where my dad. This is anyway too weird. The only thing that makes a difference now is everybody in their own heart, in their own mind. You decide whether you're living from fear or from love. That's it. That's the choice. Because we are sold, we are programmed fear, and that's how the human race has been farmed, controlled, hypnotized, sold into slavery, and massacred.
Hold on, Michael. We're coming right back on Coast to Coast AM.